I think actually some of what I'm going to say is going to echo what Professor Law has mentioned, but I have, I think, a different background that I want to introduce you to and tell you about, just to put into context my experience, which ends up being a lot the same, but I feel like maybe I started in a different place. So I'm a professor of psychology, and so I'm very interested in the capacity limitations on human information processing. Why can you only attend to so many things at once? Why can you only process and remember so much information? What is it about your mind and your brain that's limiting your processing capacity? And how can you get more of that? And these are the sorts of questions that fascinate me and that I focus on in my lab research. But I couldn't possibly fathom asking and addressing these sorts of questions when I was first going away to college, and even before I was a graduate student here. So my background is I went to California public schools, and I think there's probably this is probably familiar to a lot of you. I was the first person in my family to go to college, which meant that I had love and support of my family, but I didn't really know what I was getting into when I got there. And I kind of got steamrolled by the first few semesters. I went to Princeton as an undergrad, and all of my fellow students just seemed so ready and like they knew what they were doing, and I wasn't sure why I was taking the classes that I was taking. And I sort of thought that you were supposed to go to college and prepare for a career, and I was taking courses that weren't going to teach me how to do any particular job, right? There's these liberal arts courses, and I'm supposed to get smart and learn how to think, and I just didn't get it. And so I struggled until I took my first psychology course, Introduction to Psychology, and two things happened to me there. One, I learned that I love psychology, and the mysteries of the mind and brain are fascinating to me. That floats my boat academically. And two, I met a mentor who would change completely my course. And the day that I met him was the first lecture for Intro Psych, and I came into the room with a shirt I had borrowed from a friend. It was a Pink Floyd shirt with concert tour dates on the back, and he stopped me, and all he wanted to do was talk about my shirt. When did you go? Did you see them? And I don't know what he was. He knew all about it, and I knew nothing. And so I was trying to fake my way through this conversation. But then I looked up at the clock, and it was 10 minutes past the beginning of the first lecture. And here we are in front of this giant lecture hall, more students than we have here in this sort of stadium seating. They're all looking down, like, what are they talking about? And I was like, I don't know, but I'm going to listen. So what I loved about this professor is Professor Kinchla. What I loved about him is that I learned, not then but later, that I had to schedule an extra hour anytime I was going to meet with him, because he always wanted to connect on this personal level. He cared as much about what was going on in my life as he did about whatever project we were working on. And so I didn't know at the time that I would end up in the same field that he was mentoring me in, but I just knew that I wanted to get started with him because he was this giant. He was like 6 feet, 300 pounds. And I was trying to, I never remember him actually moving from one place to another. I just remember him being there. So he's this giant presence in my mind and in my life. And he, when I finished undergrad, there was no way I would have gotten into any graduate program. My start was rocky, like I said, and I wasn't ready. And so instead, what happened was Professor Kinchla got me a research assistant job here at Harvard Medical School, actually, working with a student somebody who had been a student in his lab and was now a professor at the medical school. So I got this opportunity to really learn how to work in my field without yet being a graduate student, not having to worry about getting started right away. And so, and it was there that I sort of learned all the basic skills I needed to go on to graduate school with another great mentor, actually. So this is Jeremy Wolf here at the medical school. And this is when I sort of got my first glimpse at the sort of value of being part of the Harvard system, or the broader network that you get introduced here. And that is when I applied to graduate programs with Jeremy as a letter writer, Jeremy Wolf. I got into all of the programs of my choice. I got into MIT and Caltech and Harvard, and I can promise you that would not have happened if Jeremy wasn't writing me a letter, not based on my undergraduate record. And so, I hope that I gave him reasons to write nice things in those letters, but I think it was his sort of impact and recognition in the field that drew attention to my application, got me interviews, and then my interviews, I think, went okay. And so I got in. And then I had to decide where I was going to go. And it wasn't obvious to me what the best choice would be, because I wanted to go into a sort of more technical approach to my field, and so Caltech and MIT sort of had some attractive features. But then my mentor said, if you get the opportunity to work with Patrick Cavanaugh at Harvard, take it. And he had opened all the doors for me, so I wasn't going to ignore his advice. And so I actually came here to work specifically with a particular individual. And I thought about telling you guys that today. I was like, I'm going to tell them that I came here for one person who's not even here anymore, actually. And so what is going to be how's that going to convince anybody that they should come here too? But we've already heard that what seems to be really powerful and something that can change your approach to your entire field is the mentors that you get linked up with. And I think that I was really lucky. Patrick Cavanaugh was a fabulous mentor. He would just drop everything and spend 3 hours with me unscheduled to go work through a problem and help me get over any hurdles that I was struggling with in graduate school. And I've learned obviously that's not true with every possible advisor, but I've heard that story over and over again here at Harvard, where the mentors and the advisors are invested so much in their students that I don't want to take anything away from my advisor, but I think that this is more common than you would expect here. So I had a fantastic experience working with that one particular individual, but I also was lucky to be part of a really broad and diverse group. And so the lab that I joined had people from not only all over the United States, but all over the world. So the year that I joined the lab, we had people from Canada and Iceland and Iran and India and probably other places that I'm forgetting at the moment, all right there in my office. So we had this international, diverse group of people that I was getting to work with on a daily basis. And so I think even though I came here for the opportunity to work with a particular individual, what I learned is that we have this sort of really diverse and rich group of people that I think I just couldn't imagine being exposed to that broad set of people in any other environment. And I've learned as a faculty member that that's partly because of Harvard's active recruitment and devotion to reaching out and recruiting people from all over the world, and people come, which is fantastic. So I think even though I came here for a particular individual, I've been lucky to have this really broad introduction to my field and exposure to people from all over the world. And I think that one of the things that also comes up when you come here as a challenge, it's a little bit tough when you're first beginning, is that all of your colleagues, all these students around you, they're going to be so high achieving that one of the toughest challenges of being here is trying to find your own place within that group. And so, for example, in my lab, when I first arrived, the person sitting next to me had 2 papers published in Nature and 1 in Science. And he was a second-year graduate student. And if you don't know those journals, those are the top science journals in the world. And so when you see that, as you come in, you see who your colleagues are, you think, okay, well, this isn't a competition, right? Like, I just want to get my PhD. And but I also realized that those people are a resource. So if you're the person with 2 Nature papers and a Science paper, remember to be generous to your younger colleagues. And for those of you who are the younger colleagues, take advantage of those people. They're smart, and they're going to help you. And they're all over the place here. So after I finished my PhD, I went to MIT for a couple of years to do a postdoc. And then I found out that my old advisor, Patrick Cavanaugh, was retiring, which of course made me very sad and also made me think maybe I should apply for Patrick's job. And so actually now I'm a professor back in the same psychology department where I got my PhD, in the same lab that I was a graduate student in, sitting in my advisor's old desk. And obviously this is, I think, entirely possible because of getting linked into this network, meeting these faculty members when I was young, and them recognizing me and knowing who I was when I came back around. And snuck in at exactly the right time. So I think that I think the best thing about being here, the reason for you to come, is the tremendous colleagues you're going to be surrounded by, and the devoted faculty who are really spectacular, and they're invested in what you're doing, because right now you're all sort of consumers. You're looking for which school to join and to get your PhD and higher level degrees in. But once you're here, you're the products of the university. You're what we're trying to make and sell to the rest of the world. And so the advisors really care. Your success reflects upon them. And so and I just find that that seems to be the attitude of faculty, and it's reflected in how much time and effort they put into trying to get you where you want to go, and teaching you in all the different ways, from personal level to the intangible aspects of being in your field, the things that you're not going to see in a textbook or on a web page that these people with all this experience can tell you. So anyway, that was my path and some of what I've valued about being here, and I'm happy to answer questions later. Thank you.